Today I'm going to show you 3 different ways of solving an equation. The first way is to do so algebraically. This problem, 3x minus 2 is equal to 5 times the quantity x plus 2 minus 3. You know how to solve that by using basic steps of solving equations. Distributing the 5, combining like terms, isolating the x by subtracting the 5x, so we have negative 2x, and then adding the 2, so we have 9, and then dividing by the negative 2, so x is negative 9 halves, or negative 4.5. You remember the days where you used to have assignments that were all just solving equations, correct? Yeah. And somebody said that they really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I want to remind you that if you ask any of the math teachers that you've had before, hey, Miss Kruger, could I please have an old worksheet? I would like to go home and have this fun weekend solving equations. I'm sure that she would give you a worksheet just like that. Hey, what are you doing this Friday? I'm going to do some 9th grade solving equations. It would be an option, right? Not for Garrett. Okay. Sounds fun. Maybe not as fun as what we want, but after a while, I get old because you know how to do that. You know how to do any kind of equation solving like that. So how do we do it graphically? Well, there's 2 options. The first one is by looking at an intersecting point, okay? I should learn how to spell intersect. So I'm going to create 2 equations. The first one is y equals 3x minus 2, and then the second one is y equals 5 times x plus 2 minus 3. So I took one side of the equation and have a y equals, and then the second side of the equation have a y equals. So that's going to make 2 lines. Wherever they intersect is going to be the solution. So if I take out my graphing calculator and turn it on, and I go into y equals, and I type in 3x minus 2, and I type in 5 times x plus 2 minus 3, let you guys type that in. Sure. And I'm going to zoom standard or zoom 6. 2 written right here. And I get that, okay? That's what I get. Can you see the intersection point of my graph right now? What could I do in order to see the intersection point? I could change the window. So the window, I could drop my y values to negative 30 and a positive 30. Maybe that would allow me to see it. If I change that, now look at the graph, I do see the point of intersection. How do I find the intersection by using my calculator? So I can calculate. Number 5, intersect. That is the first curve, enter. Second curve, enter. Guess, nope. And I get negative 4.5. Is there a question out there? All right, there's a second option you can use, and the option is to use your 0 option. And what I do for the 0 option is I actually zero out the equation. So 3x minus 2 minus 5 times x plus 2 plus 3 is equal to 0. So if I go into y equals and I type in 3x minus 2 minus 5 times x plus 2 plus 3, zoom 6, this is the graph I get. What am I looking for on that graph? place it crosses the x-axis, the 0. And the 0 occurs right here. I find that by going second calculate, 0, number 2. I move to the 0, and what's the calculator asking me to do? Left bound. So I move to the left of that, or in this case, above the x-axis. I press enter. Now it asks me for the right bound. So I move to the right or below the x-axis, and I press enter. I press enter on guess, and it locates x is equal to negative 4.5. Folks, I'd like to be clear. I don't think for a second that if you get this type of equation that you would use your graphing calculator. I know that you would solve it algebraically. Good for you. But notice I could simply just put a 4th degree there and a square root of 3, and all of a sudden your brain is starting to hurt, right? It doesn't take much for me to change it to where you wouldn't be able to solve it without a calculator. So let's look at example 2. Solve this inequality by drawing appropriate graphs and using our calculator. The first way is to look at intersection, but I am not going to show you that. It seems that people just get confused when I do that. Then I have another option, and that is to use the 0 option. So I'm going to subtract everything over to one side. So I have 0.32 x squared minus 3x minus x cubed plus 5 is less than 0. So we have to think about this. What does it mean for the graph to be less than 0? Once I graph it, what does it mean to be less than 0? Negative. And if the graph is negative, where will the graph be? Below the x-axis. That's what we're looking for. So I go ahead and I grab this equation, put it into my calculator, 0.32 x squared minus 3x minus x to the third plus 5. And as I zoom 6 or zoom standard, you can see the general shape that I get. Now, it's an inequality, so my answer will not be one value. My answer will be an interval. Right here, am I above or below? How about here? How about here? How about here? Here? So notice that that all changes at this spot, correct? I would like to find that spot. How do you find that spot? So I can calculate. Number 2, 0. I go to the 0, and it says move to the left. So I move to the left. It says move to the right. So I move to the right. I press enter on guess, and it finds 1.22. Does anybody know what my solution is then going to be? See, the question is, when is the graph less than 0? Well, for all the values, all x values that way, it'll produce values that are less than 0. And people every year ask this question, and so I'm going to try to explain it. I have the equation plugged in. Emma, give me a number. 3. If I plug in 3, should I come out with a positive or a negative? I come out with a negative. It says that if you type in numbers between 1.22 to infinity, you're going to come out with negatives. Give me another number, Jack. 37.5. Should I come out with a positive or a negative? A negative. Give me another number. Thank you. -3. If I type in -3, should I come out with a positive or a negative? A positive, because that's where the graph is above the x-axis. So that's what it means. That's what it's shown us. hopefully the table kind of helps you understand that piece a little bit better. I have a worksheet for you. You have the rest of the hour to work. I'll come around and answer questions.